Councillors, we're on. Good evening, everyone. Just getting organised. Okay. I'll begin by acknowledging the continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country, culture and community, including traditional custodians of this land, the Wadandi and Kaniang people of the Noongar Nation, paying respects to elders past and present. And I'll declare the meeting open at 5:01 p.m. And just a reminder that this briefing is being live streamed and recorded in accordance with Council Policy EMCP2. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed without the permission of the chairperson. While every endeavour is made to only record those who are actively participating in the meeting, loud comments or noises may be picked up on the recording. Agenda briefings are open to the public for attendance and observation. But please note that questions and petitions are to be presented at the ordinary council meeting, which will be held next week. Deputations may be received during this briefing session in accordance with council procedures. And councillors are reminded that there is no debate-style discussion, as this needs to take place in the ordinary meeting of council when the issue is set for decision. Attending the briefing is Councillor Purick, or Deputy President Purick, Councillor McNabb, Councillor Reggie Keown, Councillor Tyler Hall, and Councillor Anita Lindeman, and Councillor Grant Patrick. And myself, Councillor Vivian McCarthy, Shire President. And Councillor McNabb. Sorry, Amanda. Okay, and staff presidents are CEO Nick O'Connor, Director of Finance and Community Colin Young, Director of Operations Roscoe Marshall, Executive Manager Corporate Lauren Clifford, and Administration Officer Corporate Services Samantha Farquhar. And welcome to those that are attending in the public gallery, and welcome to those who are participating via the live stream. Having dealt with attendances, we've got some apologies here. Councillor John Bailey and Councillor Leanne Ringe. So moving past items 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3, and also item 3, as these are not applicable to agenda briefings, that takes us to item 4, declarations of interest. Division 6, Subdivision 1 of the Local Government Act 1995 states that care should be taken by all councillors, committee members and staff to ensure that a financial impartiality interest is declared and that they refrain from voting on any matter which is considered to come within the ambit of the Act. Do councillors have any declarations of interest to make? Okay, moving on to item 5, public question time, where we have no responses from previously asked questions taken on notice. Item 5.2 and 6.1 and 6.2 are not applicable to the briefing, so that'll take us through to item 6.3, deputations. And I would like to welcome Mr. Brad Barr from WA Plantation Resources Proprietary Limited and Forest Industries Federation WA Incorporated, who would like to present on item 9.1.1, Shire of Donnybrook bailing up local planning strategy, outcome of advertising and submission to the West Australian Planning Commission. Thank you, Mr. Barr. Now there is a time limit of 10 minutes.
Okay.
And we'll give you a little reminder just towards the end.
All right, thank you, Councillor McCarthy.
And then after that 10 minutes, we'll offer the councillors the chance to ask questions.
Okay, all right, no problem.
Thank
all right,
you.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm here representing WA Plantation Resources and the Forest Industries Federation of WA. I'm the Chair of the Plantations Division of FIFWA. I'll be speaking to the submission that was provided by WAPRES on 13th of May 2024 around the local planning strategy. I suppose what I wanted to highlight firstly is that in the feedback form, a lot of the comments that were made by the respondent had not been acknowledged or properly, I suppose, addressed in the redrafting or suggestions for redrafting. So I wanted to point out a few of the things that I think should be taken into consideration for any revisions. The first one, and I'm speaking to section 21 concerning tree farming, is that we have a feeling that the framing of the provision is unduly negative around tree plantations, that it is framed in a way that would seem to be discouraging of plantations in the landscape. We note that State Planning Policy 2.5 does encourage plantations and does acknowledge their important contributions that they do make to the rural economies. And we would ask that the Shire has planning documents that are in accordance with that, and also in accordance with what we would perceive or represent to be our good standing that we have in the community as an economic asset, as a diversified economy, as a provider of timber products for housing, renewable product, potential for sustainable energy, and also the significant employment that the timber industry has both within the Shire and also the broader southwest. The second one that I wanted to talk about was item 21.1.1 about the special control area, the plantation exclusion area. We have a concern that the supposed impacts of plantations are stated or asserted, but not actually backed up. One of the rationales says, due to the impacts of tree farming, including the potential for land use conflict. We think, again, that that's unduly negative. It begins with an assertion or an a priori assumption that tree farming is something that is negative and is going to cause conflicts with other land users. We would have a belief that conflicts with other land users can be managed through the market mechanism. For instance, highest and best use for land. It can also be managed through development applications and conditioning. We would like to, I suppose, offer, for the benefit of the councillors and any other interested parties, an opportunity to come and have a look at some of our tree farming operations and get to know some of the people involved and also some of the things that we do. We're presuming that the idea about community impacts mainly stems from perceptions around landscape amenity and bushfire hazard. So we'd be quite prepared to talk about some of the things that we do about bushfire preparation, mitigation and response. And if there's any questions at the end, I've brought some materials that can address that. As far as landscape views go, I mean, that's a very subjective thing around aesthetics. And there's just as many people probably who would say that tree plantations are a nice patch of green in the landscape during the months of November through to March, April and sometimes May, when everything else is pretty dry and dusty. Would also draw attention to the significant amounts of planning rules and regulations and DFES guidelines that we're obliged to follow around plantation protection, and also highlight that most of the damage that occurs, in fact it's 97% of the damage to plantations from bushfire, occurs from fires that have burnt into our plantations from our outside. So we're exposed to outside agents, same as any other farming or agricultural enterprises. We're not the cause of a significant number of fires. wanted to talk about alternative energy sources as well, so that I'm not just standing up here having a big whinge about things that we don't like about your planning policy. I thought they would give you a little bit of information or some things that may go to your part 4.4.3 about alternative energy sources, and I'd draw your attention to numerous instances where community installations such as swimming pools, prisons, steam laundries and other energy infrastructure are powered by wood chips, which can be sourced from harvest residues from plantations. The Albany swimming pool, for instance, is fully powered and heated by wood chips from harvest waste, and that there's a positive feedback loop in terms of bushfire around the ability to reduce the amount of post-harvest residues, leave the site cleaner, make the forest more resilient to bushfire, and also provide energy, renewable energy for the community. There's an abattoir just out of Albany that's also getting its processed hot water out of wood chips as well. So I thought I'd put that in as a bit of a happy note. That we wanted to, I suppose, reiterate that as an industry, we're quite pleased that tree farms remain a permitted use in the general agricultural zone, and as a discretionary use in the priority agriculture zone. We're quite happy with that. We do worry a little bit that the framing of tree plantations in the currently drafted strategy document could be a first step towards removing the P categorisation of tree plantations and making it more of a D or an A land use. So that's, I suppose, why we're sensitive to the way the tree plantations are framed, so that it continues that it's a permitted use. We think that overall there should be a more positive portrayal of tree plantations, and that again we would welcome an opportunity to engage in more detail and speak further and show people what we're about, to help allay some of the concerns or lay to rest some of the myths that may be out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are you happy to take questions?
Certainly.
Do councillors have any questions? I feel a question coming on. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. So just to clarify, the main feedback and concern is really around the wording and the framing. It's not any of the specific provisions within the proposed strategy?
Not really, no.
Okay.
No, more about the framing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Well, thank you very much for that presentation, Brad.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 6.4, delegates' reports. While we don't have them this evening, there'll be 2 delegate reports presented at the OCM next week. The first will be from Councillor Anita Lindeman, Rethinking Business as Usual, which you attended today. And the other will be from myself on the Walga Community Recovery Forum. That's not right. Walga Emergency, yeah, anyway. Emergency Management Forum, something like that. Anyway, it has to do with emergency management. And then on item 7, we move along, confirmation of minutes. The ordinary council minutes of the meeting are held on 27th of May 2026 at item 7.1.1. Do councillors have any questions or comments? Moving into item 8, reports of committees. There are none. And then reports of officers. Director of Operations at 9.1 and 9.1.1, the Shire of Donnybrook bailing up local planning strategy, outcome of advertising and submission to the West Australian Planning Commission. Director of Operations, Roscoe Marshall, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Madam President. My pleasure. The local planning strategy is the Shire's primary long-term land use framework that will guide growth, development and land management across the district. For elected members, it represents one of the most strategic decision points for council. Council endorsement and preemptively WAPC approval will help provide a clear and consistent basis for future planning decisions and support coordinated and sustainable development across the district. For officers, this is a significant milestone achievement. We thank Council for allocating resources to progress the strategy. I'd like to recognise the efforts of our development services team in achieving this goal. So well done, team. Even with external assistance, it's a massive body of work and a lot of heavy lifting done by our team, so well done. For the community's benefit and for those online, please note that Council have had the opportunity for a number of workshop and briefing opportunities prior to this point in time. So there has been a lot of work that you haven't or will not see and haven't seen outside of this point in time, but just please be reassured that we have spent a lot of time with Council and consultants to get to this point. However, I would be happy to take any further questions if required. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Director of Operations. Do you have any questions, councillors? All happy? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Madam President, through the chair. Just noting that this consultation period did happen in 2024, I believe, with the community. I know a lot of the councillors here are new. There's been a few decisions that, when I was reading through the document, didn't seem to have been reflected in. Is that because the consultation and the main body of work for this was done a few years ago? To what level of recent edits or updates has there been with what we saw in this agenda briefing attachment?
Thank
As compared to 2024, is my point.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. I'll just correct some wording there. It's not a few years, it's 2. Okay. Director of Operations.
Thank you, Madam President. Look, there's a bit in that, and there's probably a lot of technical side to this too. For example, there's the weight of submissions as well, which we sort of talked about in one of the workshops. So and there's several opportunities for the consultation and input, hence why we put it out for public comment as well, and then bring it back to council via the other workshops. So as much as the initial consultation, you're quite right, was done a few years ago, I would have said 2 actually, a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. It certainly has been contemporised with the recent consultation as well. So I trust that answers your question.
Any other questions? Moving on to 9.2, Director of Finance and Community. At 9.2.1, Schedule of Accounts Paid as at the 31st of May 2026. Do councillors have any questions? And 9.2.2, Monthly Financial Report for the period ending 31st of May 2026. Director of Finance and Community, Colin Young, would you like to introduce that report?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. The current financial position on the report is probably going along pretty well as expected. It's just about still trending on budget, which is a really good result coming into the end of the financial year. I would think we're going to end the financial year in a better position than what we were budgeted, but at this point we still have a lot of moving parts, so we will understand that a little bit better the closer we come to the end of financial year. Revenues 5.27% over budget, and it's largely to do with grants and contributions, which is 23% over budget. We think that's going to soften a bit before the end of the year, so it's going to come in a little bit closer to budget than it is now. In saying that, we've got advice that the federal assistance grant's going to be prepaid again, so we're going to get 80% of that paid before the end of financial year. So that'll be a grant of 1.9 million. That will get close to the end of June. That'll carry forward into 26-27. Expenditures trending 1% below budget, so that's also a very good result, and that's generally driven by materials and contracts, which is on the budget by 516,000. Some of that will carry forward into the new financial year, and then some of it will just be an on-the-budget expenditure of materials. Capital investment is both running on the budget, both the grant side and the construction side, and that's mainly just due to delays and timing in the projects. Anything that is on the budget and that come the end of the year will automatically carry forward to the 26-27 financial year. Does anyone have any questions?
Councillor Lindeman?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Through the chair. There's just a couple of items that are coming forward in this agenda, and no decisions have been made yet. But if they were, they are a negative, possibly negative impact on the budget, as well as obviously the closure of our transit park for a period of time. Is that factored in how our budget might look by the end of the financial year?
Yes, absolutely. And they're both factored into the upcoming budget coming in.
Any other questions?
Probably.
Back one item to the, okay. We can do that. Any other questions on this one?
I was just going to highlight through you, Chair, that in Officer's report there, it also confirms that the outstanding insurance payment from, I guess there's a little bit of discussion between us and the insurers around the quantum of the reimbursement or the payment for the access road for the Irishtown Bridge. So that's now been settled and it's reflected in this month's figures as well. So it is there in the dot point on under the operating activities, but that would contribute to that upside of 23.7% as well.
Okay. Well, if there's no more question on item 9.2.2, thank you, Director of Finance and Community. I'll go back a step to 9.2.1 for a question on transactions.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't have it ready in front of me. There's a number of transactions in there, which is the reimbursement for Blackberry Control. And I was just wondering, A, where that funding comes from, and B, what's the eligibility around that to ensure that, you know, we're paying it based on what, basically?
Thank
Is
you.
that- yeah, thanks.
Would that be Director of Operations? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. So there is a Blackberry removal program, for want of a better word. There's a joint grant application between our Shire and the Shire of Collie. It's state funded, and it represents, it's like an incentive for the landowners. So whatever they spend on eradication, the eligibilities, obviously they go through a process for eligibility, and they can claim 50% of that back. So that basically is like it's auspiced through the Shire, so it's really an in-out transaction.
Thank you. Any other questions? Right, we'll move on to 9.2.3, the write-off of 2025-26 rates and interest on Forest Product Commission properties. And councillors, we're all aware that the issue with FPC buying freehold land which then becomes Crown land and is not rateable. So are there any questions on this? Councillor Patrick?
Thank you. I guess my only question is, do we have a choice in this? We don't, do we? Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify that.
It's not that we don't have a choice, but we're still advocating for,
Sure.
for
Okay.
this to be returned to the Shires
Yeah.
untethered.
Thanks.
Yeah. There are no other questions on there. Moving on to 9.2.4, the request to write off Bailing Up Tourism Association. Well, we're not writing off Bailing Up Tourism Association. We're going to write off, request to write off $2,720.27. Are there any questions? Councillor Lindeman.
Yeah, I haven't got the dates in front of me.
The dates, do
Yeah,
you want?
no, it's okay. Just the money was collected on behalf of the Shire. So the money was held, but they're not returned to the Shire, which was no one's money other than the Shire's money.
That's correct.
So, okay. So, by what date should that money have been retrieved?
Thank you. Do you want to take that, CEO, or is that Director of Finance and Community? Yes.
Yes, the money was received for the management of the transit park. When the management left from the Baling Up Districts Tourism Association and it went to Space2Co, there was a delay between their payment and what happened from the club. The Tourism Association did pay an amount of $1,250. And then after that, they basically stopped paying when they got to about 2,727. We contacted the Baling Up Districts Tourism Association and they put a payment plan in place. The payment plan wasn't met, so they had intentions to get the money. However, that wasn't met. The payment plan was put in place in December 25. So we're going back quite a bit of time. We later had a letter of request to write off the debt at the 25th of February, which at that point in time we requested additional information from the association to give us their financials, which they gave us a copy of the bank account and of their profit and loss for the final year. At that point we thought the best thing to do would be to take it to council. We did have other discussions with the Baling Up Progress Association. I had good intents to pay it on behalf of the Districts Tourism Association. However, that never occurred, so no, I took it to council to request that it's written off.
Thank you, Director
Does
of
that
Finance.
answer your question?
Any other questions? Councillor Patrick?
Thank you. So the Baling Up Districts Tourist Association is an organisation or an entity, or can you confirm or clarify, is the BADTA a member under the BPA and therefore part of that umbrella organisation?
Thank you, Councillor Patrick.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I can confirm that the Baling Up Districts Tourism Association was underneath the umbrella of the Baling Up Progress Association. That has since disbanded and now they're operating under the Baling Up Tourism Association. I believe that's probably still falls underneath the umbrella of the Baling Up Progress Association, but I couldn't confirm that, yes or no, with
CEO, can you confirm that?
Yeah, so probably just to reconfirm what Mr Young said, there's been a change in the name of the Tourism Association, but my understanding from the financials that were provided, it's the Baling Up Tourism Association, it's the Baling Up Progress Association, trading as the Baling Up Tourism Association, so my understanding is they fall in underneath the broader umbrella as one of those like subcommittee type governance arrangements that a number of the other community committees fall under.
Thank you. Councillor Lindeman,
Just one more question. So if you've seen the financials and there is...
can you put your microphone up?
Oh, sorry. If you've seen the financials of the Baling Up Tourism Association, is that correct? And they have no money to pay, then can they still exist anyway? If they can't pay us, then are they able to operate at all?
Thank you, Councillor Lindeman. I don't know that that's a question we can...
Can't really answer it in any great detail, but yeah, my understanding is, you know, they do have that statutory protection under the BPA as an umbrella body. I don't think that there are legal entities that stand on their own 2 feet, and that may be an incorporated association. As to whether they're financially viable or how they raise the money, then that is a matter really for them moving forward. I guess the broader context that was sort of provided to us in the various interactions we've had with representatives from the Tourism Committee was that you know, they used to receive some of the income from the transit park, but also receives money from council through the MOUs, or the memorandum of understanding that they did have. That money had been taken away gradually over that period. And I think they were even talking about holding raffles or doing things. It was down to that sort of granular level. And I think it came to a pragmatic approach from officer level. It's, given the fact that it's $2,700, it's probably just a pragmatic way for council to write off that debt, realising that they are still looking at doing some, they are still providing a service, a tourism service to the community. So we didn't want to further hamstring their commercial viability. Yep.
Any other questions, councillors? Right. Moving on to 9.3 Chief Executive Officer reports, and 9.3.1 the offer to purchase lot 351 Victoria Parade, Donnybrook. CEO, are you going to
Just very
hand this-
briefly, if you
Yes,
like. Yeah,
please.
so councillors, I'm excited to bring this report to you. As per the detail of my report, I guess this proposes to be the first step in unlocking, potentially 33 residential blocks up at the end of Victoria Parade. As you can see in the diagram, I think it's diagram number 1 in the body of the report there, this is a historical subdivision back to 1900, and I think it's fair to make the assumption that what is now lot 351 was always intended to remain in public ownership, and I guess potentially be, or definitely be, an extension of Victoria Parade. So this is, I guess, the first step in what will be a long journey to unlock those parcels of land, or the residual 33 parcels of land, which I guess till this date, until the lot 351 and other associated blocks, until they were put on the market recently, I guess there wasn't really any great prospects in council being able to unlock that land. So, as well as requesting the $10,000 to effect the purchase, we're also looking at getting some in-principle approval to make budget provision out of the strategic project reserve for next financial year to undertake some preliminary design works. And I guess that gets us almost into that shovel-ready position to try and secure some either state funding or federal funding to actually do the construction work of that road. So that's, I guess, the procedural steps we're looking at undertaking, but the really critical linchpin step is us securing that lot 351. So happy to take any questions, councillors.
No questions? Thank you, CEO. Moving on to 9.3.2, asset optimisation, workforce plan amendment. And CEO Nick, are you introducing this?
Yes, my voice holds out, councillors, so apologies. So, so look, as per the report, councillors, you've seen the timeframes, and we, as required under the integrated planning reporting framework, earlier this year, council adopted an update or a report on the workforce plan. We also foreshadowed that there was some work being done within Director of Operations area around getting better alignment between our structure, our organisational structure, and our resourcing to better deliver on our asset management program. So I guess, we started this journey around asset management maturity a number of years ago, where from a financial perspective, we identified there was a significant funding gap. We've taken some really strong strides in closing that asset sustainability gap over the last few years. The asset optimisation project as well, where we identified some surplus land, and we're looking at freeing up some of those funds and reinvesting them back into the assets that our community truly values. And I guess the final piece of the puzzle is that whole sort of structure and resourcing. And I think it's really good timing as well, as outlined in the report, or the finance component of the report, councillors, is pretty much cost neutral. And the fact that we're looking at leveraging the funding from predominantly from Main Roads Western Australia, so 10% from Roads to Recovery, 10% from the Regional Roads Group projects that are funded through that program, as well as the recent overhead costs that was discussed about the responsibility for the maintenance of bridges being handed back to council as part of a broader MRWA sort of approach. So it comes out being relatively cost neutral. I think in modern sort of council organisational structures, there is a standalone asset management area. I guess this gives sort of that whole structure follows our organisational strategy perspective as well. And I guess if you also look, councillors, that the dollar value of our assets being around $335 million, the fact that we now have a standalone but incorporated unit headed up by an executive manager reporting through Roscoe and his team, I think really sends a strong signal that, you know, not only are we wanting to get the finances right, but we want to get the structure right as well. So happy to take any questions.
Any
councillors.
questions, councillors? I have one. Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm looking at the table on the green table with the dollars in it there, Sam. Yeah. I'm just wondering where the offsets are.
Yep.
I can't say until next week what I think about the offsets, but where we've got the 25,000 offset, 25,000, 100,000,
Yep.
is there any trade-off for that offset? Is there an opportunity cost on the RTR contracted works at 10% and then the RRG and the bridge capital works? Is there a trade-off or an opportunity cost? Or is,
Can I get Mr Young maybe to...
like, is it been pulled out of one pool
Oh, I
to
see.
take?
What we're technically doing, when we do a build a road in-house, we add a overhead to the road that's attached to the labour, which is an overhead that pays for the design, project management and all other activities that are to do with that road. Until recently, we haven't been charging an overhead when we have done fully contracted work. So we design the road, we do the surveys, we do the planning, and then we go out to the market and we get a contractor to come in and they do that road. So the question is are we taking it from one bucket to another? No, absolutely not. What we are doing is we're starting to charge overhead on top of the cost of the contractor to do the road. So this is a new charge. It is a new charge for the Shire of Donnybrook Baileynup. It is not a new charge in the way local governments do business with grant funding. The majority of the larger councils in Perth all have contracted works. They don't have in-house construction crews, and they're absolutely charging overheads on all projects that are being grant funded through either Regional Road Group or Roads to Recovery. So we're just starting to implement that. There is a little bit of administration work involved with it, but I think in the long term, the benefits to the Shire will be great. So that gives us an opportunity to offset costs for the project managers and the technical staff against the actual capital jobs, where previously they weren't able to do. Oh, we weren't doing that. We were technically able to, but we weren't doing it.
Excellent, thank you, that's quite clear. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. So look, I was reviewing the same table, and my questions there's probably two. One is, obviously this is predicted revenue, it's unbudgeted. So there's no, can you confirm that at this stage, given that we're this close into the new budget, the new financial year, we've applied for this funding already for the next budget, I'm assuming, or have we applied for this funding for the next budget?
Do you mind talking about the risk around that? Yeah, thanks, mate.
Yes, look, we have applied for this funding, absolutely, within the current budget we've done. Through Regional Road Group and Roads to Recovery, we've actually got $85,000 worth against them projects in the coming year for project management. The bridge funding we have guaranteed through Mean Roads is about $3.5 million worth of bridges to be done over the coming 3 to 4 years. And they have already given us in writing that there will be a 10% project management charge on that. So we're pretty secure on our funding with the bridge maintenance and construction for at least the next 3 years. I think that's beyond a doubt, and depending on how many grants we're getting over the coming years will depend on the 10% for regional road groups and Roads to Recovery.
But we probably just, it'd be fair to say that given our historical achieving and getting those grants, the fact that we will then be charging the 10%, it's fairly low risk moving forward that we won't get that grant, and therefore that 10%. It's probably just, as Mr Young has said, a change in our practice and charging that overhead for those grants that we've been looking at.
Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. So, and that ties in really well with, I guess, my next question. It was going to be around the duration of the funding. So you've already said we've got not a guarantee, but a fairly good commitment for the next 3 years, say. The position that we're looking at, that level of position, is it a permanent ongoing or is it fixed term contract subject to renewal for those types of positions?
Thank you, Councillor
It's a permanent ongoing, but obviously, with the passage of time, then there's an ability to, if the world changes, there's ability for us to do an amendment moving forward. But, when we undertook at officer level a risk assessment, we thought the 3-year horizon and where we're at with our asset management maturity, now's the time to make the move.
Any further questions, councillors? Thank you. Well, we'll move to 9.3.3, the goods shed lease. Council direction on post-expiry arrangements. CEO and Executive Manager Corporate.
I'm just going to briefly say, obviously, councillors should be aware there is a large contractual sort of discussion and there's a confidential attachment, so just be mindful of anything that's sort of in the public at this stage. So, over to you.
Through the chair, so as you're aware from our discussion at the previous workshop, the goods shed lease at lot 597 Collins Street has reached its expiry, and we're now requiring council's direction on the appropriate post-expiry arrangements. As discussed, the current lessee has requested continued occupation under a revised financial and operational arrangements, noting that a number of the matters arising during the lease term remain unresolved and require some further considerations. So this report seeks council's direction on a suitable interim and long-term pathway that balances the continued activation of the facility.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions, councillors? Okay, moving on to 9.3.4, the delegation register review. And again, we'll ask Executive Manager Corporate to introduce the report. Could you please start with an explanation for new councillors of what the delegation register
Sure,
is?
thank you, through the chair. So before jumping into the detail of the delegations register, it's worth stepping back, particularly for our new councillors, to recognise the broader governance environment we operate within. A local government in Western Australia is subject to a significant complex legislative framework, which with more than 170 pieces of legislation providing oversight and direction on compliance obligations across the operations of the Shire. Within that framework, council is ultimately responsible for the decision making, but it's neither practical or efficient, obviously, for council to make every one of those decisions. So then we therefore have delegations. So the delegations are a critical government mechanism that we use to enable council to formally assign the authority to the CEO or to officers if the Act allows, within clearly defined limits. That we ensure that there's decisions made lawfully, efficiently and at appropriate level, as well as maintaining accountability to council. So this report presents the annual statutory review of that delegations register, which is a key control to ensuring that the powers we have delegated remain current, appropriate and aligned with the legislative requirements and the Shire's operational needs.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Moving on to item 10. Sadly, there are no elected member reports in this evening, which takes us on to item 13, the closure. And I can advise that the next ordinary council meeting will be held on the 24th of June 2026 at 5 p.m. in the Shire of Donnybrook Baling Up Chamber. Thank you, councillors. We'll declare the meeting closed at 5 p.m.